Let me begin by saying this: nothing changes until you change. The moment a person decides to take responsibility for their life is the exact moment they begin to shape their destiny. Responsibility is not a burden, it's a privilege. It's the bridge that connects where you are to where you want to be. Most people spend their lives waiting for something to happen, waiting for luck, waiting for help, waiting for circumstances to align. But the truth is, life doesn't respond to waiting. It responds to action. And action only begins when you accept responsibility. We all start somewhere. Some people start with more resources, some with less. Some grow up in comfort, some in struggle. But regardless of the starting point, one universal truth remains: you are responsible for where you end up. Not your parents, not your boss, not your teacher, not your country. You. Life doesn't give equal starting points, but it does give everyone the equal right to take responsibility and change the direction of their story. Responsibility is the foundation of personal power. When you take responsibility, you reclaim control over your life. The moment you say, "I am responsible," you stop being a victim of circumstance and become the creator of circumstance. Most people give up their power by blaming others. They blame the government, the economy, the weather, their childhood, or their spouse. But blame is a thief. It steals your future. It steals your potential. When you blame, you hand over the steering wheel of your life to someone else. And as long as someone else is driving, you'll always end up somewhere you didn't plan to go. Responsibility is not about fault. It's about ownership. Maybe something happened that wasn't your fault. Maybe you were hurt, betrayed, or dealt a difficult hand. That's life. But here's the question: are you going to let that define you or refine you? Responsibility says, even if it wasn't my fault, it's still my move. That's the mindset of a leader. That's the mindset of someone who grows. I once met a young man who said, "I'm waiting for my situation to change." I told him, "Son, your situation will change when you change. You can't wait for the wind to blow in your favor. You must learn to adjust your sails." Life is about adjustment. Responsibility means taking charge of that adjustment every single day. If you want better health, take responsibility for what you eat and how you move. If you want better finances, take responsibility for how you earn, spend, and invest. If you want better relationships, take responsibility for how you communicate, listen, and love. Success in any area of life begins with that single decision: I will take responsibility. Responsibility is freedom disguised as discipline. Most people think responsibility limits them. It does the opposite. It sets you free. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for someone to fix things for you. You take your life into your own hands, and that's where true freedom begins. Some people say, "I'm just unlucky." No, they're just not responsible enough to make luck work for them. Luck is not a strategy, it's an outcome. It follows preparation, effort, and persistence. And those things are only possible when you take full responsibility for your growth. Let's be honest, taking responsibility isn't easy. It's far easier to blame. Blame is comfortable, responsibility is uncomfortable. Blame lets you stay the same, responsibility demands that you grow. Blame gives you sympathy, responsibility gives you strength. The truth is, growth is uncomfortable. But that discomfort is the birthplace of greatness. Think about the farmer. The farmer can't control the weather, but he's responsible for planting the seed, watering the soil, and tending to the crops. If the weather turns bad, he doesn't quit farming. He prepares for the next season. That's responsibility. You can't control everything that happens in life, but you can control how you respond to what happens. And that response determines your future. Taking responsibility also means refusing to make excuses. Excuses are the language of failure. Every time you make an excuse, you trade your potential for a justification. You tell the world and yourself that your limitations are stronger than your will, but they're not. Excuses sound convincing, but they achieve nothing. The most successful people aren't the ones with no obstacles. They're the ones who refuse to use those obstacles as excuses. If you want to know how far a person will go in life, watch how they handle responsibility. Do they step up or do they step back? Do they own their mistakes or do they run from them? Life has a way of testing us, and every test is really a question. Will you take responsibility or will you run away? The people who choose responsibility are the ones who grow. Responsibility also means being honest with yourself first. It's easy to deceive others, but it's fatal to deceive yourself. Be honest about where you are. Be honest about your habits, your attitude, your effort. Until you are brutally honest with yourself, you can't make meaningful progress. Responsibility begins with self-awareness. You can't fix what you won't face. There was once a man who spent years blaming his failures on others, his employer, his friends, even his luck. One day, he looked in the mirror and said, "If I'm the problem, then I must be the solution." That single thought changed his entire life. Because once you realize you are the problem, you also realize you have the power to be the solution. That's the essence of responsibility. Let me tell you something powerful. No one can rescue you from yourself. You can get advice, mentorship, and support, but at the end of the day, no one can do your push-ups for you. No one can change your mindset for you. No one can take responsibility for your life except you. The day you accept that truth, your life begins to transform. Sometimes people think responsibility means doing everything alone. It doesn't. It means owning your part, whatever it is. It means saying, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. It's about understanding that while you can't control all outcomes, you are always in control of your effort, your attitude, and your decisions. Responsibility gives you power in every area of life. At work, it turns employees into leaders. In relationships, it turns conflict into connection. In health, it turns struggle into strength. Responsibility is the engine of progress. It's what separates those who wish from those who achieve. Let me tell you another truth. Life is not fair, but responsibility makes it worth living. Life will hand you challenges, pain, loss, rejection, failure, but how you handle them determines your destiny. Some people let pain define them. Others let it refine them. The difference is responsibility. Responsibility says, this happened to me, but it won't control me. That mindset builds resilience, and resilience is the foundation of success. We all make mistakes. That's part of being human. But responsibility means learning from those mistakes instead of hiding from them. Don't waste energy defending your errors. Use that energy to correct them. A mistake is only a problem if you repeat it. Otherwise, it's a lesson. Responsibility turns mistakes into wisdom. You see, the secret to change is ownership. You can't change what you don't own. If you own your attitude, you can change it. If you own your habits, you can improve them. If you own your results, you can transform them. Ownership gives you control, and control gives you confidence. When you start taking responsibility, you'll notice something else. Your confidence grows. Because deep down, confidence isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing that whatever happens, you will handle it. Responsibility builds that kind of self-trust. You become stronger, wiser, and more capable because you've proven to yourself that you're in charge of your life. Sometimes people say, it's not my responsibility. But the truth is, the moment you say that, you limit your growth. Responsibility isn't just about what you have to do. It's about what you choose to do. Great people take responsibility not because they're forced to, but because they want to. They understand that responsibility expands your capacity. The more you take on, the more capable you become. Look at anyone you admire, a successful entrepreneur, a great leader, a respected teacher, and you'll find one common trait: they take responsibility. They don't hide behind excuses. They don't point fingers. They say, if there's a problem, I'll find a solution. That's leadership. Leadership starts with leading yourself. The greatest gift you can give yourself is the ability to say, I'm in control. Not control over others, but over your own reactions, your own growth, your own decisions. That's what responsibility gives you. When you live responsibly, you stop feeling like life is happening to you and start realizing life is happening for you because of the choices you make. There's a saying that goes, the price of greatness is responsibility. That's true. Every reward in life comes with a cost. The cost of success is responsibility. The cost of freedom is responsibility. The cost of happiness is responsibility. You can't escape it, but you can embrace it. And once you do, you'll discover it's not a weight, it's wings. When you take responsibility, you begin to live intentionally. You stop drifting. You stop letting life push you around. You wake up each day with purpose. You say, this is my life and I'm going to make it count. That's when ordinary days become extraordinary. Because responsibility gives meaning to effort. It gives direction to dreams. Sometimes people fear responsibility because it feels like pressure. But let me tell you something, pressure is what turns coal into diamonds. You can't shine without pressure. Responsibility is that kind of pressure, the kind that shapes you, polishes you, strengthens you. And remember this, responsibility attracts opportunity. People trust those who take responsibility. They promote them, invest in them, follow them. Responsibility is magnetic. It draws success toward you because success only lives in the hands of those who can handle it. In the end, responsibility is not about perfection. It's about progress. You'll still make mistakes. You'll still stumble. But every time you take ownership, you grow stronger. Every time you take responsibility, you build character. And character is the foundation of everything worthwhile. So take responsibility for your thoughts, because thoughts become words. Take responsibility for your words, because words become actions. Take responsibility for your actions, because actions become habits. Take responsibility for your habits, because habits become your destiny. Everything starts with that simple decision. I am responsible. You are responsible for your future, your happiness, your health, your wealth, your relationships, and your peace of mind. Don't hand that responsibility to anyone else. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Take ownership now. Because the moment you do, life starts to work for you instead of against you. And remember, life is not about what happens. It's about what you do about what happens. That's responsibility. And that's where all growth begins. When you walk out into the world tomorrow, walk with the awareness that everything in your life is either by design or by default. Design comes from responsibility. Default comes from neglect. Don't live by default. Don't let the winds of chance decide your direction. Grab the wheel. Steer your life with intention. You have everything you need to build a beautiful life. Your mind, your time, your effort, your choices. But none of it matters unless you decide to take responsibility. Once you do, every day becomes an opportunity. Every challenge becomes a teacher. Every failure becomes feedback. So take responsibility, not because you have to, but because you want to, because you deserve the kind of life that only responsibility can build. And when people look at you one day and ask, how did you do it? How did you change your life? You'll be able to say with confidence and pride, I took responsibility. That's where it all begins, and that's where all success lies. Blame delays growth, ownership accelerates it. That simple truth can change everything about how a person lives, works, and thinks. Blame is the easy way out, the comfortable seat where you can point fingers and explain why things didn't work out the way they should have. Ownership, on the other hand, is the hard road. The one that forces you to look in the mirror and ask, what part did I play in this? The difference between those two choices defines whether a person stays stuck or moves forward. Most people don't realize that every time they blame, they hand over control. They give their power away to something outside of themselves. When you blame, you say, I can't change until they change. And that's the slowest road to growth, because it makes your progress dependent on someone else's behavior, someone else's decision, someone else's apology. But when you take ownership, you reclaim that power. You say, regardless of what happened, I'm still responsible for what I do next. That shift moves you from powerless to powerful, from passive to proactive. Blame creates a wall between you and growth. It blinds you to lessons because when your focus is on who caused the problem, you miss the opportunity to learn how to grow from it. Ownership tears down that wall. It allows you to see mistakes clearly, not as a reflection of your worth, but as feedback for your future. People who grow fast aren't perfect. They're just honest. They're willing to say, that was my fault, or I could have done better. Those words are not weakness. They're strength. They open the door to improvement. Blame closes that door tight. It keeps you trapped in the same patterns, repeating the same errors, wondering why nothing changes. Blame also feeds your ego. It tells you a comforting story, that you were right, that someone else failed you, that life is unfair. And while it may feel good for a moment, it does nothing to make you better. Ownership humbles the ego. It forces you to admit that maybe you could have done more. Maybe you could have reacted differently. Maybe your mindset played a role in what happened. That humility is uncomfortable, but it's also the birthplace of wisdom. The people who grow the most are the ones who learn to face their own part in every outcome, not out of guilt, but out of a desire to learn and improve. Blame looks backward. Ownership looks forward. When you blame, you spend your energy analyzing the past. Who said what? Who did what? How unfair it all was. That kind of thinking drains you. Ownership redirects your energy toward the future. It says, okay, this happened. Now what am I going to do about it? It's action-oriented. Growth doesn't come from reflection alone. It comes from correction. Ownership turns reflection into correction. It's the fuel that drives improvement. Blame creates victims. Ownership creates leaders. A victim mindset says, life happens to me. A leader mindset says, life happens for me, and I'll respond in a way that makes me stronger. People who blame others never lead because they never believe they have control. They wait for things to change instead of being the one who changes them. Ownership builds leaders because it builds initiative. It teaches you that no matter what happens, there's always something you can do. You might not control the storm, but you can control your sails. That mindset turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Blame also keeps relationships stuck. When two people blame each other, nothing moves forward. Each one is waiting for the other to change. Ownership breaks that cycle. When one person says, I'll take responsibility for my part, it shifts the energy completely. It invites respect, understanding, and growth. That's true in families, teams, and friendships. Ownership creates progress because it brings humility and accountability, two things that blame can never provide. In business, blame kills progress. It creates a culture of fear where people hide mistakes instead of learning from them. Ownership builds a culture of trust. When people take responsibility for their results, good or bad, it sets a standard that others follow. The whole team starts focusing on solutions instead of problems. Growth multiplies when ownership becomes the norm. Blame is rooted in fear. It's a defense mechanism to protect the ego from feeling inadequate. But the irony is, it's that very fear that keeps people small. Ownership is rooted in courage. It takes courage to admit fault, to say, I messed up, to accept that your current reality is a reflection of your past choices. But that same courage unlocks potential. When you take ownership, you free yourself from fear because you learn that failure isn't fatal. It's feedback. Blame creates stagnation. When you constantly explain away your results, you stop improving. You start believing your own excuses. Ownership destroys stagnation. It keeps you in motion. Every time you take responsibility, you gain insight. Every insight leads to a better decision, and better decisions lead to better results. That's how growth happens, through small acts of ownership repeated daily. Blame often hides behind sophisticated language. People say, it's not my fault, or I couldn't help it, or they didn't give me a chance. These sound harmless, but every one of them robs you of growth. Ownership speaks a different language. It says, I could have handled that differently. Next time I'll prepare better. Or, it's up to me to make this work. Those words carry power. They tell your mind that you are in control, and your mind responds by finding solutions. The language you use shapes your behavior, and your behavior shapes your life. Blame feels safe, but it's an illusion. It feels like protection, but it's actually a prison. When you blame, you stay exactly where you are. Ownership feels risky, but it's the path to freedom. It may be uncomfortable to face your shortcomings, but once you do, you gain the power to change them. That's the paradox of growth. The more you own, the more you evolve. People who blame live in reaction. People who take ownership live in creation. When you're reactive, life pushes you around. When you're proactive, you push back. Ownership puts you in the driver's seat. It says, I might not control everything that happens, but I control how I respond. And that response determines your future. Blame focuses on who's wrong. Ownership focuses on what's next. Growth doesn't come from proving you were right. It comes from improving what went wrong. The best people don't waste time defending themselves. They spend that time developing themselves. Ownership keeps your eyes on progress instead of protection. Every successful person you'll ever meet has mastered the art of ownership. They don't waste time complaining about what they can't change. They focus on what they can change, themselves. They understand that personal growth is the key to every other kind of success. And personal growth only begins where blame ends. Blame makes you a prisoner of your past. Ownership gives you a passport to your future. The difference is night and day. When you choose ownership, you stop carrying the heavy load of excuses and start carrying the light of accountability. It doesn't make life easier, but it makes you stronger. And strength always leads to growth. Ownership isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. Every day, you'll face moments where blame whispers, it's not your fault. And ownership whispers, what can you do about it? The voice you choose determines the quality of your life. Growth doesn't happen in big leaps. It happens in small choices repeated consistently. Every time you choose ownership over blame, you grow a little more. You get wiser, stronger, and more capable of handling life's challenges. So when something goes wrong, don't ask, who caused this? Ask, What can I learn from this? That question is the seed of growth. Because while blame delays your progress, ownership accelerates it every single time. Responsibility transforms pain into power. Pain is something everyone experiences. It's part of the human condition. There's no life without some measure of difficulty, disappointment, or loss. But what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck is how they handle that pain. Most people try to escape it. They run from it, numb it, deny it, or blame someone else for it. But when you take responsibility for your pain, you begin to transform it. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this?" That single shift in mindset turns pain from a punishment into a teacher. Pain itself doesn't make you stronger. Taking responsibility for it does. Because the moment you own your pain, you own your power to change it. There's a difference between suffering and growing. Suffering is pain without purpose. Growth is pain with meaning. When you take responsibility, you give your pain meaning. You say, "I can use this. I can turn this into strength." Most people wait for the pain to end before they move forward, but those who grow understand that pain is part of the process. They embrace it, learn from it, and use it as fuel. When you stop seeing pain as an enemy and start seeing it as a message, it becomes a source of transformation. Responsibility gives you the courage to face pain head on instead of hiding from it. Pain comes in many forms: failure, rejection, loss, regret. Each one has the power to break you or build you. The outcome depends on what you decide to do with it. When you take responsibility, you stop seeing yourself as the victim of your pain. You become the sculptor of your experience. You start shaping meaning out of moments that once felt meaningless. You begin to understand that every wound carries wisdom, every struggle holds a lesson, every heartbreak hides an opportunity for deeper understanding. Taking responsibility doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms how it affects you. Instead of destroying your confidence, it deepens your resilience. When people refuse responsibility for their pain, they stay trapped in it. They tell stories about who hurt them, what went wrong, and how unfair life has been. And though those stories might be true, repeating them over and over keeps them stuck in the same emotional space. Responsibility breaks that loop. It's saying, "Yes, this hurt me, but I'm not going to live there. I'm going to use it." That mindset doesn't ignore the past. It redefines it. It says, "This pain was real, but it will not define me. It will refine me." Every great transformation in life begins in a moment of pain. The most successful people you see didn't get there because everything went smoothly for them. They got there because they turned their pain into purpose. They took responsibility for what happened and used it to grow. They didn't let pain make them bitter. They let it make them better. Pain is a signal that something needs to change, and responsibility is the courage to make that change. Together, they form the foundation of growth. When you take responsibility for your pain, you reclaim your emotional power. You stop depending on apologies or circumstances to feel better. You stop waiting for closure from others and create your own closure through understanding. You realize that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about taking ownership of how you move forward. That's the power of responsibility. It turns emotional wounds into emotional wisdom. It transforms pain from something that weakens you into something that strengthens you. Pain handled irresponsibly creates resentment. Pain handled responsibly creates resolve. When you blame others for your pain, it grows. It multiplies because you feed it with anger and self-pity. But when you take ownership, you begin to starve that pain of its power. You shift your energy from "why me" to "watch me." That shift changes everything. You no longer see pain as the end. You see it as the beginning of something new. Responsibility doesn't mean pretending the pain didn't hurt. It doesn't mean minimizing what you went through. It means acknowledging it fully and still choosing to grow from it. It's saying, "Yes, this was difficult. Yes, it broke me for a while. But I'm going to take responsibility for what I do next." That decision restores dignity, confidence, and direction. Pain without responsibility leaves you feeling helpless. Pain with responsibility gives you hope. When you take responsibility, even your worst moments can become your greatest teachers. You start to see patterns, habits, and beliefs that contributed to the pain. You gain clarity about what needs to change. That awareness becomes the seed of wisdom. Responsibility transforms emotional chaos into understanding, and understanding leads to peace. Most people want peace without facing pain, but it doesn't work that way. Peace is what happens when you take full ownership of your story. Pain has the power to destroy your motivation if you let it, but responsibility can turn that same pain into drive. Think about the person who was rejected and decided to work harder, the person who failed and decided to learn more, the person who lost everything and decided to rebuild stronger. Their success didn't come from avoiding pain. It came from transforming it. Responsibility gives pain direction. It channels emotion into effort. It turns breakdowns into breakthroughs. Every time you take responsibility for your pain, you expand your capacity. You build inner strength that no one can take away from you. That strength becomes your foundation for future challenges. You start to realize that pain doesn't control you anymore because you've learned how to use it. It becomes fuel instead of fire. People who run from pain are controlled by it forever. People who take responsibility master it. Pain can make you hard or it can make you wise. The choice depends on responsibility. Without it, pain closes your heart, shuts down your trust, and limits your vision. With it, pain opens your eyes, deepens your empathy, and sharpens your focus. When you take responsibility for your pain, you stop seeing life as something happening to you and start seeing it as something happening for you. That simple shift changes the way you experience everything. Responsibility also transforms pain into compassion. When you own your pain, you begin to understand the pain of others. You stop judging so quickly because you've walked through your own fire. You become a source of strength for others, not because your life is perfect, but because you've learned how to turn suffering into growth. That's one of the greatest gifts of responsibility. It not only transforms your pain, it allows you to help others transform theirs. Pain is inevitable, but power is optional. Responsibility is what turns one into the other. Without responsibility, pain feels like punishment. With responsibility, it becomes preparation. It prepares you for the next level, the next opportunity, the next challenge. Every painful experience carries a lesson hidden inside it. Responsibility helps you find that lesson, learn it, and use it. The truth is, pain reveals who you really are. When everything is easy, anyone can seem strong. But when pain comes, it strips away pretense and shows your character. Responsibility is what builds that character back up stronger than before. It allows you to rebuild with purpose. The most powerful people you know didn't escape pain. They mastered it. They didn't wait for life to get easier. They got stronger through taking responsibility for their response to it. So when life hurts, and it will, don't run, don't hide, and don't blame. Take responsibility. Ask yourself what this pain is trying to teach you. What part of you it's trying to strengthen. That's how you turn pain into power, not by escaping it, but by owning it completely. Taking responsibility turns victims into visionaries. Victimhood is a mindset, not a condition. It's the belief that life happens to you, that circumstances control your destiny, that someone else holds the key to your happiness. When you live as a victim, you give away your power. You see every obstacle as unfair, every challenge as proof that the world is against you. But when you take responsibility, everything changes. You stop waiting for rescue and start building solutions. You stop hoping for change and start creating it. That's how vision begins. When you realize that no one is coming to save you and that you are enough to begin shaping your future. A victim looks at their situation and says, "This is why I can't."